welcome to Happiness and the City. This is Barbara, and today I wanted to focus our attention on a very important word, and the word is glory. There's a lot of focus today throughout the world on matters of justice, but that is a very delicate focus because it stirs anger. Because anytime the concept of justice is invoked, people think in terms of what is the content of justice. So, what is a crime and what is not a crime. So, the focus is on understanding of penalties. And there's place in society for this, but it shouldn't be replacement for all the other ways to measure well-being, joy, and health of social relationships. So I've been developing those ideas to help you expand your imaginations and your intellectual ways to grasp concepts that are very important for well-being of society, and that often, when properly applied, don't have any need for anger or grief or vengeance. So let's look at what Wikipedia talks about it. I use this a lot. First of all, because then you can follow up with those ideas on internet and then check books in the library. But it is a very well written article, and you have here the article that clearly focuses on the word glory with very well organized application. So this word can be applied to places, to religion, to optics, music, artists, album, songs, film and television, ships, games, and then also other uses. So you see right here in this article that word glory has diverse meaning for diverse people. The most powerful way it is used in Judeo-Christian faith, it refers to the manifestation of God's presence. That's why people who understand this say all glory belongs to God. And the reason they say this is because they mean glory that comes with God. In other words, that kind of glory cannot be claimed by any other beings, because it's the very nature of divine presence of God. And if there is no manifestation of glory, there's certainty that God is not there. So it's one of those ways in which God allows people to perceive His presence. I've been in many worship services in different churches, in many healing services, and there were times when God's presence was so powerful you could touch His glory. It was each time an overpowering experience of divine beauty, and you cannot order it. I don't know why God sometimes doesn't really show up, and sometimes He would show up only indirectly through services, through readings of the biblical words. through sermons, but then there are some situations in which he announces his presence, and that is that presence of his glory that is just amazing. And one of the ways that presence of God's glory is depicted in Christian tradition is through icons or holy images of saints or stories from the Bible. Especially in the iconic tradition, you see the halo that surrounds the depicted saint or God, and that is to bring in awareness to divine glory as part of manifestation of divine presence. So this is one of the most powerful ways in which the word glory is understood. But there are many other ways in which that word is applied. And one of the ways it is used is in any great achievement in art, in music, in technological thought. We associated with presence of glory, but in this context it's not the same as glory that manifests with the presence of God, but it is glory that comes from the beauty of divine creation. So there are two different dimensions of that word, but there are certain places that were created by human hand and they are glorious. For instance, Hagia Sophia, the great church in Constantinople, which today is called Istanbul, and that church is so amazingly built. The architecture is so beautiful and majestic. It is glorious in the beauty of the architectural creation. It is also glorious because of what had been happening there till 1452, when the last official emperor was considered to be the final emperor, and then he stepped away. But for many centuries, this was the place where emperors were established as current ruling emperors. And because since Constantine I, they were Christian emperors, this was always happening with glorious presence of God. God never would have allowed an emperor after Constantine I to be there without his glorious presence. So the ruler was connected to the manifestation of God's presence, and that must have been an incredibly amazing experience to witness, because today many people forgot about it. And when I have been looking to see if there is manifestation of divine glory in any current rulers that who have offices, I don't see it. So it made me think that that may be what is missing in our vision of peace. We don't perceive presence of God in ruling officers. Presence of God, the glory of God that accompanies presence of God, is not the same as functions of the state or the church. It is a higher level way of connecting to God, and that is by His direct presence, by His connecting us to kingdom of God. So many philosophers did not understand that, and they completely ignored the concept of kingdom of God and just focused on human kingdoms and human buildings of the church, missing this whole dimension of kingdom of God that ancient Roman rulers understood. And then God would manifest His presence and His glory because they believed in it. They were capable to receive it. And I'm fascinated by it. I have high level of education in political science, and when I started looking at those questions and that history, I thought that I have missed something in my experience of leadership. So now I'm very curious about it, and I actually asked God to reveal this. If I'm the only one on earth that believes it's possible, I ask God to show it with my name and presence, and then you'll enjoy it, because I think this is an experience that would be transformative for mankind, as it was transformative for people who experienced this in ancient Rome. And that included all people in Roman countries, but also Middle East and Israel. So I think that would be a fascinating experience. And I'm ready, if God chooses to agree with me on this, for God to show it through me. And then you will perceive it, because you'll perceive the glory that comes with presence of God. You will know it doesn't come from me or any human person, but it comes from our Father in heaven, from God who loves us, who created us, and He wants the best for all of us. He loves His children. He loves the world. He loves everybody on earth. That's why He created His Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So I think that would be and could be the answer for peace for our generation and for the next generations. Because if we can perceive that glory comes with vision of peace, then we can perceive peace that has the right measures and that connects people through presence of God, and that would be divine love. And I think that concept has been missing in political life, in political science teachings for a long time. And I think that if we really want to experience something amazing that would allow people to understand divine love and divine peace, that would be the great opportunity for mankind to experience something that Romans experienced for more than 1,000 years, and that we can learn from it. So that is one of the ways the word glory leads us to understand and transcend limited political concepts. And I think that that would be something welcoming for the whole world, because there have been some tragic situations happening in different countries recently. And when I learned about it, I realized that human security would not be able to deal with this. So I actually realized that we need, as mankind, to take seriously what ancients knew in their experience, and that is glorious presence of God as security. In ancient times, divine security was connected with a cloud that also accompanied presence of God. So, glory of God is also security that comes from kingdom of God. You cannot purchase it. That kind of security can be only granted to us by God. Can you imagine this? Security from divine kingdom that blesses all security officers, all security conversations, offices, all personnel, thinking, direction, vision, understanding of what is safe and what is not safe, understanding how to lead people away from being threats to being benefits for society by applying educational aspects of security. I think that this is the right way to go. So I believe that when God's presence manifests like this, that can be felt throughout the world, and then the right thinking about security happens, that can prevent those tragedies from causing so much grief and sorrow and suffering. As many of you know, I've gone through a lot of personal suffering because of on-the-job injuries years ago. And when I was in a hopeless situation 20 years ago, God's presence came with His glory and He miraculously healed me. And that was just first step of me understanding that there is higher power that controls our destinies, that when the limits of human thinking thought that was over for me, divine glory manifested with presence of God and transformed my life 20 years ago. So I think that what happened to me personally, now when other healings are happening in my life, I thought that I will ask God for faith that His loving presence can come to the world and show His love and His presence and His security to the entire mankind. I think it is a great idea. Just as we have internet now that connected all countries of the world, we can have presence of divine glory as proof of presence of God to teach our hearts and connect our hearts with divine security. And that would be the best security that there is. So let me look at another aspect, and that is the word glorification. And glorification refers to matters of heritage. And it is also very important because in Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox Church, Oriental Orthodox Church, in many Protestant denominations, there is understanding that the life here on earth may continue in Kingdom of God through presence of divine permission to enter Kingdom of God after people die. And those people who actually end up living there for eternity are called saints, which means they share in the glorification that comes from being in constant presence of God. So this is a different way to understand presence of God. This is what refers to our heritage. And the presence of God that refers to asking God's Kingdom of God to come on earth concerns those of us who are living now on earth, and those of us who want to continue the heritage to the future. So there are two ways of understanding glory of presence of God, and glorification of the heritage is very important because it allows current generation to connect with experience of divine presence that strengthens our current relationships. And that is something that is not really taught as important except within the context of the churches, but it is very important because it teaches new generations the depth of legacies that shape them. So in order for us to be in the shape of beauty, strength, health, wealth, and love that comes from Kingdom of God, we have to understand how former generations experienced this in Christendom, but also in Israel, in Arab world. There's so much heritage connected with glory of God that we should seriously look at it. And in my opinion, this is the connecting power that brings peace among diverse people. Something like this cannot be willed by human words because they die. But when there's glory that comes with presence of God, this is bringing a sense of eternity and a sense of purpose that peaceful, godly relationship between nations is much more important than immediate benefits. So this gives incentive to promote peaceful relationships between countries all over the world, and it creates opportunity to know how to get strength, life, and light to do it. Because some people mean very well, but they don't have power to even handle their own affairs. And then, of course, they will not be able to create that kind of peace for the whole world or groups of nations. So today we have many dangerous situations in the world, and I ask God to grant me this great experience that ancient Roman emperors experienced. I'd like to experience the presence of God's love, the manifestation of glory that comes with presence of God, like the ancient Roman emperors experienced, and then we'll see where it will take us. I think it will take us to a high level of political life, beauty, and international love. Thank you so much for listening to my remarks, and see you here next week for another edition of Happiness in the City.